Hey everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for another Fighting the Hate. So, this was a video I was going to do really early on in this. I was immediately going to do this after, Grease 2, because they're similar in their style, but I ended up putting it off for a little bit. But I'm going to be doing another sequel where they replace the main characters. And I completely understand why people hate that. I'm the 100% the same way. I do not always like when they do a sequel that's the same stuff, but they just, bring in new characters or don't bring in enough of the original cast. I completely get the hate for that. I've had more than a few films where it's just like, really? We're getting another one of those and you didn't even bother to get the main characters back? What's the point? But I will say that I've had a few of those where it's like, they turned out to be really good films underneath, if you can just let go of the fact that blank person in this. And with this one, it's really kind of hard to let go of that fact because of who the main characters were. Because the main characters were such a big deal of the first two films. So much so that I completely understand if someone doesn't like this film for that reason. And I wouldn't do this list, except this film popped up on a list of the first 50 worst films ever made. And yeah, I'm sorry. Smokey and the Bandit Part 3 is not one of the worst films ever made.
Smokey and the Bandit Part 3. Hot damn y'all, I swear.
Yes, it's automatically not as good as the first one because it doesn't have Burt Reynolds or Sally Field. It's does have Burt Reynolds in it, but it's more of a glorified cameo than anything else. That said, as a film itself, it's a pretty good, solid film. I honestly don't think there's anything about the film itself that deserves for it to be on the worst films ever made. It is a fun, enjoyable, goofy, out there comedy with some really good action scenes. And I will be honest, I like this more than Part 2. We'll get into that at the end, but for starters, let's go a little bit over the plot of Smokey and the Bandit Part 3. Now, Smokey and the Bandit Part 3 starts with Buford T. Justice, as he is standing in front of a giant flag.
Sheriff Buford T. Justice, a name that inspires respect in the heart of every American.
A la Patton, giving his retirement speech and talking about all of his great accomplishment over the years. When the Enos brothers, Big Enos and Little Enos, show up and be like, well, what about the bandit? You never caught the bandit. And he's like, I've chased that bandit from coast to coast, and I did more to catch him than any person alive, and I think I've earned the right to retire. And it's like, the Enos is like, well, you know what? You talk a big game like you're all that great. I don't think you're as good as you think you are. In fact, we bet $250,000 against that little tin badge you're so proud of that you can't do a simple little drive. We have this fish, this large stuffed fish in Florida. We need transported to our location in Texas. You do this, and within 3 days you get $250,000. And which is a really weird plot in general, considering what the other ones were. Because at least the other ones, those were illegal transportations, which is why the cops were getting involved in this, that, and the other. It's there's no reason they can't just normally transport that fish across the thing, unless it's endangered or something stupid. Because the first one, they were transporting alcohol across state lines, which was illegal, and then they were also transporting a live animal in the back of a normal 18-wheeler in too. So it's those were actually illegal, whereas this is doesn't seem like it needs this big a deal. But that is the plot, and we can work with it a little bit. So Buford listens and declines. He doesn't want to do it. He's like, I am retired. And so he goes on his retirement, and we see a montage of him on his retirement. And
well, you took all those outlaws and the weirdos with hair.
definitely not something he's interested in. Basically, Buford's like, and enough of this. I'm done. I'm retiring. Let's go beat the Enoses. So they go to the Enoses, they strap the fish onto their car, and they start the drive over. The Enoses set a whole bunch of traps and a bunch of people to try to stop them. none of it works and ends up backfiring on them in more ways than once. And they're like, okay, we need to get someone who can actually do something about this, someone who can drive well, someone who can cause this trouble. And they're like, well, what about the bandit? Should we call the bandit? And it's like, no, we shouldn't hire him. It's too hard to manage. He's too unreliable. Which is kind of makes sense if you remember the events of 2, where it's like they didn't actually complete the task that they were doing in 2. He gave up to so the elephant could be safe, which is, good character development, but you can see why the Enuses might not fully rely on him. They do, however, decide, who's never let us down? The snowman. We should rely on him, which, weren't the bandit and the snowman a bit of a package deal? Wouldn't you be, if you were not trusting of the bandit, shouldn't you also not be trusting of the snowman? Anyway, so they call up the snowman and they're like, hey, we want you to help us with this. You take the fish from Buford and you can have the money for yourself. And he's like, oh wait, so I get to drive the Trans Am and hit on all the ladies and wear the sunglasses, and I don't have to be in the big truck with my dog? I'm in. I'll go for it.
Tell you what, you want to see a bandit? You looking at a bad bandit. I'm talking bad.
So he gets in the Trans Am and goes chasing after him. Ends up running into this girl named Dusty, who just quit her job and randomly jumps in his car for no reason. And they go chasing after Buford. They manage to catch him. They take the fish.
Your patch is ready, Chip.
I heard that. If you're ready, just hold it steady. I'm coming in.
No, they're doing something to me. That is why you gotta have a sixth sense.
Hi, boys.
I do.
Bye, boys.
Wolf! It's the bandit, some bitch, and it's got no fish. As of this instant, Junior, we're in hot pursuit.
And it becomes a cat and mouse chase sequence where everyone's fighting to get control of the fish, and it leads to a whole bunch of unique, fun little sequences. There's a whole chase and a destruction derby.
At the Joey Chitwood Show. And Buford T Justice about to as well. I don't know
What the hell is happening?
Daddy, we're going into a big hole.
Oh, hell, that's a cannon.
There's a part where they go to this hotel that turns out to be a love hotel, and there's a room having an orgy. There's boat chases, and there's a part where they get launched from the boat.
This boat won't do that.
Don't argue with the law. Follow that some bitch.
Okay, you asked for it.
And end up crashing into the middle of this nudist picnic. There's also a lot more nudity in this film than any of the others, in the fact that none of the other ones even had nudity, but there was a bunch in this for some reason. And yeah, so it gets to the point where Snowman has the fish and he's getting towards the finish line, and he sees Buford behind him in his completely destroyed, barely running car. And Snowman just lets up off of the brake, and Dusty's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You can't have a bandit without the Smokey." So he allows Smokey to win. He gets across the finish line with the fish, gets to hoard it in front of the Enuses and show that he's better than them. And then he sees the bandit's car, and he starts walking over to it. And Snowman's like, "Wait, what should I do? Like, do we just drive away? What?" The car won't start. He tries to, and it won't start. It's like, oh, I have an idea. So he puts the hat on, puts the sunglasses on, and just turns away and waites.
I'm not the bandit. The bandit is the bandit. The only man in the world that thinks I'm the bandit. Wait a minute. This might work. Sit back. Sit back. And don't move a muscle.
And when Smokey shows up, it turns and it's Burt Reynolds.
Gotcha.
Hello,
Hello, Buford.
as the Bandit, and he's Burt Reynolds at his most charming and his most lighthearted. It's like, you caught me. You did very good. We've had such a history together. It's a shame it has to end.
You're thinking right now that possibly you'd no sense sending me off to prison where to lose all the friends and everything. I mean, you could give me a 5-second head start and chapter me. We can.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm a law and order man. I got you.
And we're going to keep you. Yeah, you're right. I was silly to even think that.
You sure were.
You're too tough for that.
That's right. I'm upright, straightforward.
Yeah.
Gee, Daddy, now that you finally caught the bandit, you can really retire. We can go back to sunny Florida and you can collect your seashells and... But most and best of all, Daddy, I'll take you fishing.
I'll give you a 5-minute head start. Bye-bye.
And Bandit takes off, and Buford runs back to his car, starts chasing after him, leaving his son, who's chasing behind him, with the money just flying out of his hands. And he's like, "Wait, Daddy, wait! You left me behind, wait!" And roll credits. And if you could tell by the smile on my face, I enjoy this movie a lot. It's a lot of fun. It is stupid. It is goofy. It is a heck of a good time. Yes, I 100% understand that most of the hate towards this film is the fact that it has no Sally Field at all, and Burt Reynolds is a glorified cameo that doesn't even make sense in the story. I 100% understand and agree with that. I do not like the fact that Burt Reynolds is not the lead in this. I do not. That definitely makes it worse than the first one. But you know which one I like this a bit more than the second film? I actually think Smokey and the Bandit Part 3 is better than Part 2. And there's a couple reasons for that. Granted, yes, we do have Burt Reynolds playing the Bandit and Smokey and the Bandit 2. But he is a drunk, depressed person who spends the most of the movie complaining or just making an ass out of himself for the entire time. And it's like, it is such a darker, more dour, more down story. And it's like, it's Smokey and the Bandit. I don't want to think about the ethical treatment of elephants in a Smokey and the Bandit film. The majority of the film is not great. It has one really, really good action scene towards the end, but most of that is because you have Buford T. Justice bringing in his cousins to help him get the bandit, and that action scene at the end there is great, but you have to get through a lot of meh film for that. Whereas this one is just a good film from beginning to end. There's no real points in it where it's like, this is really bad or not interesting or not well done. It has a lot of good stuff going for it. It has, you know, most of the returning cast. Like, we didn't get Sally Field, we didn't get Burt Reynolds, but we did get back Jackie Gleason as Buford T. Justice. We got Jerry Reed as Snowman. We got Paul Williams, Pat McCormick, Mike Henry. We got all of the people to come back and redo their parts and give pretty good performances. I really like Junior in this one. I really like Buford T. Justice in this. He really kind of helps round his character a bit more. Not a lot. He's still the same character. It's not like he dramatically changed or anything, but it was interesting to see more from his side.
I told you, you flying flamingo. My name is not you, baby. It's Buford T. Oh, shut up. I got a felon in front of me, a fool in the family, and a giant nymphomaniac on the roof. The burden of it all is dragging my ass.
But when you talk dirty, darling.
I liked the element of having the snowman pretending to be the bandit, because you had these moments where he's like with the girl and she's like, well, what would the bandit do in this situation? Well, like, the bandit would just jump this bridge and not worry about it, but I'm not him, and I'm tired and I just want to go to sleep. So it's like, okay, well, there's a hotel back there. Okay. This film is just a joy from beginning to end. It starts out great. You get that patent opening, and then it goes straight into this Buford T. Justice's theme, which is this great song.
Buford T. Justice, fearless law of Texas, man who chased the bandit coast to coast.
It's excellent. And then a little bit later, when you see the bandit come out and he's driving around, you get another new song that's excellent called The Bandit Express by Lee Greenwood.
Look out, the bandits coming, bet your money and warn the women, tell those Smokies all the table rest, 'cause they'll never get the Bandit Express.
They never learn.
Just so much fun and so energetic, and it's It's a blast film, and it has some great action scenes, some great stuff in it. Like, there's one really good scene where they kind of tie it into the first film, where Snowman has picked up Dusty, and they go to this bar, and he's going to go pick up food, and he goes into the bar. And the last time this happened in the first film, he got in a bar fight, and they kicked his ass and threw him out, and then he crashed his 18-wheeler into all the motorcycles to destroy them. And that was his way of getting revenge. This time he goes in for there, and they start the fight and go to throw him out, and he just gets up and goes back into the bar, and he just starts chucking them out windows. And the whole time he's just like going, "What do you want on your sandwich? We want fries? Fries. We'll get you some fries."
Sir.
Hold it.
Be right back. Well, I guess we ruined your whole day, didn't we? How about some onion rings, honey? They got
And it's just him kicking the entire bar's ass, and it's just fun and hilarious. And you can look at that going, did he just learn how to fight because he didn't want to have his butt kicked again in a bar like last time? Or is it because he's pretending to be the Bandit and he now has to live up to this, legendary figure? Because at this point, like, the Bandit is like Davy Crockett, where it's like there was an actual person, but the legend is so much more now that it doesn't matter what he actually was like or actually did. It's his best, and he does a good job with it. I think he's really fun in this performance, and I could totally see him playing the lead in his own spin-off thing. Like, honestly, would this film have worked better if it had been called Smokey and the Snowman? Probably. At least it wouldn't have added to that anticipation, but I still like it. I still think it's got some good action. Good ideas. The story isn't amazing. It's got flaws. It's not the most logical, but then again, it's a Smokey and the Bandit film. Logic was never necessarily one of the biggest factors in that. It's just fun. It's just fun from beginning to end. And that's annoying because I saw one of the reviews for it, and they were like, the sense of fun from the original is missing in this. And I'm like, clearly we didn't see the same film. This was a lot of fun. It might not be quite as fun because it's missing that Burt Reynolds easy chemistry or that Sally Field kookiness, but it's still lots of fun. And I like the fact that as you get towards the end of the film, it becomes about more than just this race. It becomes about, the legacy, the story. It's like, you can't, if he doesn't have that badge and he doesn't stay as the Smokey, then there's no Bandit. So they kind of have to coexist together to make this work. And in some ways that makes sense, and other ways that is completely stupid and ridiculous because it's not even the actual Bandit in the trouble. But it's still like, you could totally see Buford T. Justice chasing down a fake Bandit for months on end without realizing it's not even the real guy. And he'd probably be like, I hate that he got away, but I still wouldn't have given up on that chase. And I'm like, I completely will say, I understand if this is not a film you enjoy because it doesn't have Burt Reynolds. If it's not as good as the other ones, I get that. I totally do. But I don't think it deserves to be listed as one of the worst films ever made. I wouldn't even put it in my bottom 500 worst films I've ever seen. Like, I enjoy it. But to be fair, the list that I found this from is not a good list either. It was a film made in 2013. The most recent film on that list was Ishtar from 1987. And it's like, so all of the films that were listed were like late 70s and 60s flops. And it's like, he's like, so you made this in 2013 and you didn't include The Room, Birdemic, Manos, Hands of Fate, any of the actually terrible films. You just included Smokey and the Bandit 3 as one of the worst films ever made. No. You're full of it. That's not one of the worst films ever made. Considering there are 4 made-for-TV Bandit films.
You're under arrest, boy. Has the Bandit gone bad?
That's for trying to hit on my girl.
Me? Or is he being set up?
There's another Bandit here to see.
I was here already?
To take a fall.
Lock the car.
The dead prototype shows up in the wrong hand.
Ooh.
An Action Pack exclusive. Where's the car? I don't know, Lynn. John Schneider, Amy Dolenz, and Brian Bloom. You're not going to believe what's happened to me this morning. The all-new Bandits, coming up next from the Action Pack.
Can we all acknowledge that Smokey and the Bandit 3 is probably not the worst one of these? And to be fair, I have not seen any of the Bandit films. Any of those straight-to-TV ones. I didn't even know those existed until like 2 years ago when I came across the box set that was all of them. I did not buy the box set because I didn't want it, but I do have to ask you guys, have you seen the Bandit films? Are they any good? I only know like a couple, and there's like The Bandit Strikes Back, The Bandit is one of the ones. It's like, is those films any good? Are they worth the effort? Because I will gladly watch them, and if you want, I will gladly even review them after I watch them. But yeah, I honestly think this is a good film. Let me know. What do you all think? Do you like this film? Do you hate this film? Have you never seen this film? Let me know in the comments below. I will see you all next time. Happy watching, happy reading. Bye.